Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and we're starting right off with the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. Dan, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
We've got a lot to talk about. Let's talk about Bradley Farms. Obviously, you're open. This is what we think of this time of year. We think of Bradley Farms. How's everything going so far?
Very well. We had a nice season to put things together. It takes a long time to do that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But we're there.
How long do you plan for the fall season?
We never stop.
Oh, okay.
I mean, depending on the time of year. I mean, once you put everything away, that's your time to focus on what went wrong, maybe what might be better, where society's going, meaning as far as how do we change, what are we going to do to try to keep and attract people to our location.
Sure. And you do have something new this year, which I want to talk about because it kind of blew my mind. What is a virtual, what is it?
Virtual reality.
Yeah, what?
And
So
that was a new phrase to me. We were in St. Louis in February for a Halloween Christmas show, and that was my first experience to see what virtual reality was.
Yeah.
And frankly, at my age, it was way beyond me.
Yeah.
However, I wanted to be open-minded. We had to see just what's this all about. And as I talk to younger people, that's a part of their lives to see these things. So, we need to keep encouraging young people to come in. It's time to focus and look at these things.
Yeah.
And it is incredible.
Yeah, and of course, like I said, when we think fall, we think Bradley Farms. Let's take a step back. How was the pumpkin harvest this year? I heard apple harvest wasn't good.
Apple harvest is probably more difficult than they anticipated it was going to be. They not only had problems with a late freeze, they also had some hail issues depending on where you went in the summertime. It's a very, very difficult crop to grow.
Sure.
Because unfortunately, in many of these people's worlds of apple growers, that's their one income.
Right.
And you lose that for a year, that hurts.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Whereas we've been fortunate over the years, if we were growing vegetable crops or farm crops, well, if that didn't work out, next year there might be something else, or you could turn in another direction pretty quick. So we've been somewhat fortunate.
Sure. So, and there's obviously the wagon ride. So you have the virtual one, hayride.
Yes.
And then you have a real good old-fashioned one.
Yes, and we have not done wagon rides for several years for several reasons. But I finally decided this last year was time to get back in the game again because that's what families really wanted. So we purchased 3 new ride wagons and created an area of hay bale art. If you're familiar with that is, where they just stacked up big round bales and painted them and made different creatures and scenes to give kids something to see, at least on a wagon ride. So it's about a 15-minute trip of entertainment.
Boy, how many people are on your staff to be able to do all this?
Frankly, there's only 3 or 4 people.
Really?
If we pull this stuff all together. Right?
No wonder
there's
you work all
part-time
year.
clerks and staff, but as far as the actual management and build, there's probably 4 people.
Wow, that's amazing. That seems almost unbelievable that you can accomplish all that. Is there a lot, when you talk about the virtual reality hayride, is there a lot that goes into that? Or?
Yes, however, that's not owned by us. But it's basically a franchise. It's
a
company out of New Jersey called VR Park.
Okay.
That they created this when they were at the show. They showed us this, that they could bring this in and build it, and they came in and set it up. We operate it, but it's their equipment.
Okay. And you have the corn maze.
And we have a corn maze, yes. We've done that for several years. And that's a fun thing because we try to focus on something in the community that we would like to honor or highlight.
Yeah.
So this year we chose the LaFrance companies.
Oh, that's great.
Whether it's American or Ward LaFrance fire trucks, which Elmira used to be the fire truck capital of the world.
Right. Absolutely.
However, it's been 30 years ago.
Right.
And we asked many of the young people about LaFrance, and they look at me, what's that mean? And they see this big fire truck, but we know what we're looking at.
So they get to learn.
We try.
Yeah.
Yes, we try to get something educational in what we do.
How long does it take to get through the maze typically?
We try to keep it, whenever we design one, we try to keep it at about an hour.
Oh, wow.
That's enough, especially for families or young kids. You get much more than that, it becomes an issue. They just get tired of it, or they've had enough. We've done that. We used to have them 3 or 4 hour mazes. It was too much.
Wow. You spend your whole day in a maze.
Yeah, and they just come out mad.
Yeah. So what should people know if they've never been to Bradley Farms this time of year?
Well, this is our 104th year, and the one thing that we really try to focus on is to keep it a family opportunity.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that seems to keep shining through over the years is some place to take children to that, first of all, you won't come out bankrupt, and second of all, it's a place that you can spend time together that goes across generations. We see many grandparents bringing in grandkids, if it's not during the weekdays, but weekends we'll see carloads of families that they can all do things together.
And you have so much that is going on there, you could almost spend the full day.
It's enough for a few hours,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So a nice afternoon then. And it's, as you mentioned, it's something for all ages. And it's priced that way too.
Yes.
And that's great. It's great to get people involved like that and get out into the public. It's like a neighborhood community event, really,
Correct.
going to Bradley Farms. That's great. So I do want to change up a little bit, if you don't mind. something completely different, and that's politics, because you are on the Southport Council and you have a campaign going on right now. How's the campaign going?
Very well, very well. I almost sometimes I look forward to it, sometimes I don't. But I guess the big things I like about it is it gives me a chance to reconnect with some people ordinarily I don't get to see. Because sometimes I don't get off my own property for a week or two.
Right.
And unless they come in to see me, I don't see them. So it's a chance to get out and do that.
Yeah. So what are your goals if you are reelected?
Well, there too, my biggest concern has been the last couple of years have watched our, I'll call it lack of communication, is when you have literally nobody coming to your town meetings.
That's so interesting.
What's that all about? Is it because they just don't care or they don't know? Any number of reasons. We need to do a better job of reconnecting with our own neighbors and constituents. And whether that's through a better job on our website, we've proposed, or I'd like to see a newsletter come back out. Our town used to do it years ago, and I'm not saying it has to be a paper unit, but if one wants to go in and check anytime they want to a active website where they can really connect, but most importantly, to get them to understand what's going on, why our budget is what it is, why we do what we do, and we need the help and interaction with people.
This is so interesting because I had representatives on yesterday from the town of Corning, and I'm on the Irwin Town Board. This is a common conversation that people have. Why do people not come to the meetings, or at the very least interact with their town officials? Because when you really boil it down, you can talk about the president, you can talk about Congress, you can talk about all that, but who affects your day-to-day life more than your local town boards?
Correct.
And I don't know how we spread that message.
That is correct, and we've got to find the better way to do it. I had proposed we'll start in November, December to actually go back to having some forums to bring people in, because we have issues of police protection. We don't have a police department. We have a dedicated deputy from the Chemung County Sheriff he's there, that's his dedicated job, but that's a 40-hour-a-week job.
Right.
And as we're seeing issues of crime trickling into our town, like it or not, we've got to go forward and look. Can we afford to go back to a police department as it was years ago? I don't believe so.
No.
If it costs the town $1 million for the town, I'm not sure the town's going to support that. However, I shouldn't make that decision until we hear that from the townspeople. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
Maybe they want to see. Maybe that's important to them. But we've got to know.
And you have to have the conversation, because like you said, you can want to deny it's happening, but you can't ignore it.
It's reality.
It's reality.
Yes.
So you can't stick your head in the sand, and I think that's what's unfortunate. And I also find that when it comes, and this is any town or city council, people don't pay attention almost until it's too late.
Correct.
You know, we've had 5 meetings about this issue, and you came on the 6th when it's already a done deal. And it's really unfortunate. And I think people would be better served if they understood the process.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But how did we do it?
Absolutely.
Chip
Find a
away.
way.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's all you can do. So why did you decide to run for re-election? How long have you been on the board?
I've been on 8 years.
Oh, okay.
8 years. And I guess I enjoy being a part of trying to do good for the town I live in.
And that's really what it's all about, right?
It's your
Public
community.
service. Yes.
You need. It's easy to complain. That's the one thing I've learned. It's easy to complain.
Sure is.
But unless you step forward and try to do something about it, two different things.
And that's what we talk about in this program so often, getting involved in your community, because there's these recent polls where people aren't community minded any longer.
Right.
They're just not. It's not even a pride thing anymore. It's just a lack of interest in their community.
In many cases, they just may not feel welcome.
Yeah, that's true
to
too.
come to a town meeting. Sometimes it can appear somewhat intimidating if you're a new one to come in, but engaging is what it's all about.
Right, and this is a little late now for this. It's very late for this election season. But people are intimidated about getting involved. You know, maybe running or just getting involved at the committee level of taking out petitions.
Sure.
But there's nothing more simple. Talk to somebody that's already on a board. Talk to it's Steuben County Board of Election, but to your Board of Election, whoever you need. But it's really simple, and if that's in your heart to do that, you should do it.
You don't have to start at an elected position.
No.
Every town needs a planning board.
Right.
The Board of Appeals. I mean, we beg for people to get onto these boards. And it's a good place to learn to understand the structure of why you have the rules and the laws that you do have and why it happens.
I know. It's sad when you read that there's town boards that don't even have a full board because no one's getting involved. So that doesn't even mean you have to get petitions. That's just, you could be on the board and people still don't want to do it. It's not, it's a time commitment. But as you know, it's not that much of a time commitment if you care about your community.
It comes down to priorities.
Yeah, yep, you're 100% right. So I'm going to ask one more question about Bradley Farms before we go. But what would you say to voters before they head to the booth?
Oh, we'd be happy to see you come out and support us on October 13th. We're going to have, Rich Matthews and I are going to have a meet and greet at my location.
Oh, great.
I think it's at 5 to 7 at night. If people want to come in and just sit and talk with us, voice their concerns, give us ideas, we're listening. That's what we're there for.
And isn't that what's nice? And we were talking out there, but petition season, and even when you are campaigning, it's very nice to have those conversations with the residents of things that you may not be aware of or
Right.
things you're well aware of, but to hear their opinion on it.
Absolutely.
So I love the idea of more forums and more hearings.
Yes.
I think we'd be better served. Okay, back to Bradley Farms. Just before we go, what would you say to people who have never been to Bradley Farms and what they should know coming up?
Well, visit us and hope for a fun experience. We just try to do things that are just plain simple fun. We have
Good family
what's called
fun.
Beast Blast cannons. They're a big cannon you stand behind, shoot tennis balls at
Yeah.
targets.
Oh, that's fun.
We have an inflatable obstacle course.
Yeah,
Of course, lots of pumpkins laid out there.
Oh, yeah. And you
Some
can
light
get your...
foods. There's a big animatronic display area. That's free to go in and see. We don't charge to see that and do
Yeah.
all that.
Wow, you got a lot going on. I can't wait to go down to Bradley Farms. Well, Dan, thanks so much for being on the program this morning.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I want to thank Dan Hurley again for being on the program. It's fun that we could talk not only Bradley Farms and the fall weather, but also talk about politics for a little bit. Speaking of politics, did you happen to catch the GOP debate? I had received some texts, and if you're not aware, here's our contact information. You can always contact me, and that's not just cheapers. That's not just during the show. You can do after. And I received some really great comments before the debate, people wondering what it was going to look like. It was interesting. And by the way, I should highlight, too, we do have another guest coming up, a quick little interview with Dr. Elizabeth Warner at Guthrie. So that's coming up in a little bit. But please weigh in. What did you think of the debate last night? We're going to have to take another break just so I can play a little catch up here in just a little bit. But let's first look at the times. That's how much time the candidates received yesterday. Ramaswamy taking the lead, 12 minutes, 30 seconds. Ron DeSantis at 12 minutes, 8 seconds. Scott, 11 minutes, 21 seconds, and you can see the rest there for yourself. Okay, a couple, I think, easy takeaways is that people can't be Donald Trump. What I mean is there was a lot of back and forth and what I thought were just kind of duds and really kind of lame attack lines. Nikki Haley saying that she feels, dumber every time Ramaswamy gets done talking, something that I'm paraphrasing. But even more cringeworthy was Chris Christie's Donald Duck line, saying that because Donald wasn't at the debate, that they're going to start calling him Donald Duck. I don't know. Again, I don't want to put any bias towards this, so I want to hear your opinion. I will say, there's a drone flying by on the road, up in the air. That was weird. I will say that I don't think it really benefited too many candidates. I don't see an uptick, but according to the media, as we've talked a lot about on this program, Nikki Haley, clear winner to many in the media. Keep that in mind. That's a very important point to that statement. In the media, Nikki Haley was the winner. So who do you think the winner was? We're going to talk about that when we come back a little bit later on in the program. Dr. Elizabeth Warner. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here. Oh, yep, audio's good. WYDC TV, Big Fox. Yeah, someone's flying a drone down the road. You may have heard me mention it, so I got a little distracted there. Okay, so back to the debate, and I would love to hear from you who you thought the winners and the losers were. Mike Pence, the consensus is that he bombed with his one-liners, mentioning his wife as a teacher. You heard that part. I thought Nikki Haley, many in the media liked it, but Nikki Haley telling Ramaswamy she feels dumber after hearing him. I don't know. I see what they're attempting, and I don't think it's working. Now, former President Trump did fire back after Chris Christie. I guess his campaign kept posting pretty unflattering photos of Chris Christie. But with an exclusive with Fox News, Trump said, "I thought it was much more important," meaning that Trump was at a rally with the union, the auto union, saying, considering I have a 56-point lead, for me to be dealing with the UAW and the fact that the Biden administration is going to destroy their jobs over the next 2 years by going all electric vehicles. So that's why he did not want to go to the debate. That was in reference to the corny line from Chris Christie saying Donald Duck. Let's take a look at what Liz Peek at Fox News had to say. She believes the winner of the evening was Governor Ron DeSantis, mainly because the bar was set so low. And that's typical in debates. You know, the bar is set low on someone and they come out shining. They get a lot of credit. I think Ramaswamy saw a little bit of that, not necessarily in the first debate, but just in his campaign in general and some of his interviews. But the winner of the evening, according to Liz Peek at Fox News, Ron DeSantis, for whom expectations were low. The audience was reminded of his achievements and why the Florida governor is running second in the GOP primary polls. Then Nikki Haley, for whom much was expected, failed to live up to her performance in the first debate, but held her own. Ramaswamy was not as annoying as in the first debate. If you remember, Liz Peek was speaking very highly of Ramaswamy before the debate, but then after the first debate came out and said, boy, he was smug, annoying, but I'll continue. But he has yet to show he is ready to be president. And then South Carolina Senator Tim Scott was more combative, as expected, but probably did not move the needle on any of this. And finally, as for everybody else, with respect, it is time for Mike Pence, Chris Christie, seriously, she has in parentheses, yes, seriously, he's still in there, and Doug Burgum to drop out of the race. Fewer contestants would mean less fighting for airtime and less bickering, and that would be a relief. So a lot of the comments have been that Trump made the right decision by not attending the debate. Some people, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well, some people were critical of the moderators. I know they had some technical issues at Fox News at first, some back and forth, but they were critical of the moderators. The Univision commentator asking maybe what some have deemed more maybe MSNBC type questions than a Fox News question. But CNN put together, before we go to another break, put together what they, and I always like to go to different outlets, this obviously left-leaning CNN, what they said about the debate and their takeaways. And they normally do a piece about every debate and, State of the Union like that. Trump's safe approach appears to have paid off, so they had the same mindset there. Tonight's GOP debate was as boring and inconsequential as the first debate, and nothing that was said will change the dynamic of the primary contest. That's Trump's campaign's senior advisor releasing a statement. They called it a messy 2 hours. The second GOP primary debate was beset by interruptions, crosstalk, and protracted squabbles between the candidates and moderators over speaking time. That's tough for viewers trying to make sense of it all, but even worse for these candidates as they attempt to stand out as viable alternatives to the absentee Trump. Then they suggested that Haley and Scott going back and forth on, I guess, the cost of curtains was pretty, well, they gave the victory to Nikki Haley and said that it really hurt Scott. I don't know. They called it an uneven performance from DeSantis, a lot different than Liz Peek's thought on it. And then tough questions on immigration and Latino voters. The candidates and moderators shy away from abortion talk. Candidates pile on Ramaswamy. And finally, DeSantis and Pence duck healthcare questions while Haley pounces. So you're going to see a common theme this morning from the media, and it is that Nikki Haley was victorious. Now, I do find it interesting, and I meant to check this right before we went on the air. Drudge Report does a poll every time there's a debate and who you thought won. And it's updated consistently throughout the day, and you may even be able to vote more than once. I'm not sure, but 35.93% of the people polled, which is 20,378 votes, excuse me, said that Haley won. And then DeSantis at 19.59, Ramaswamy coming in third. take this with a grain of salt. Not that I don't like Drudge Report necessarily, but I say take it with a grain of salt because people, campaigns specifically, know the power of Drudge Report, so they'll go on and, they'll figure out ways to have as many votes as possible. But again, the theme, and I'm not trying to demean Nikki Haley all the time. I think she's a good person. I think she would make a good president. I just get concerned when the media tells us over and over and over again that she's our best hope. That she's the only way we can win, that she wins every time. That it's just a major concern for me. So we're going to take a look at more opinions from CNN and some left organizations. We're going to take a look at some of what on the right had to say. But again, the most important thing that I can bring up is what you thought of the debate. So please contact me during this break and let me know what you thought of last night's debate. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. All right, welcome back to Frankly Speaking. I understand we may have had an audio issue, and so I'm going to see if right now I have some people commenting. Can you hear me on the program? We've got sound. We do. Okay, good. I do not know what happened in the last break. I apologize. I will recap quickly. What I had said about the debate is that, and I don't remember exactly where we left off, but Liz Peek said that she believed DeSantis did the best because of the low bar. Now, on the more liberal side, very liberal side, CNN, their whole comment is that Nikki Haley essentially won the debate. No praise for Tim Scott, which I think Tim Scott did good. Tim Scott has some very inspirational things that he says that I really enjoy. So let's take a look at a little more of what CNN had to say. They put all their talking heads, not all of them, a lot of them, and have them write out a quick opinion piece. And here's a quick rundown. Just so you know, I think it's important to take a look at what outlets that aren't friendly to Republicans have to say. The reason I say that, if they keep, and this is not to knock Nikki Haley. I like Nikki Haley. I think Nikki Haley, no audio suddenly? Are you serious? Do we have audio or don't we? We may have to do a restart. Well, I'm gonna keep talking as if you can hear me. Nikki Haley is being pushed by the mainstream media. Okay, we do have sound. Okay. Nikki Haley is pushed by the media a lot. Why is that? Why are people that would never want to see a Republican win telling us this is the only chance that we have? That always raises a lot of red flags. You've heard me say numerous times on this program, okay? And I like Nikki Haley. I think she would make a good president, but that concerns me. They seem to know look at it. I don't want to keep mentioning this, but they said it about McCain. They said it about Romney, and they tried to say it about Jeb Bush. But okay, anyway, this is what CNN's talking heads had to say. Jeff Yang said the funniest moments on stage were all unintentional, essentially saying that the Republicans were being mocked for their performance last night. I will say that many of the Republicans are trying to be Trump-esque, and that doesn't work. We saw that, speaking of Jeb Bush, we saw that from Jeb Bush in the primaries back in 2016. But he makes a fair point in the sense that the scripted lines that Mike Pence and others tried to make as kind of zings fell flat. But then, just to show you they're so out of touch, Jeff Yang, who said this, that nobody was funny on that stage, then has a very cringeworthy line, which is perhaps it's because the candidates had such awkward demeanors and deliveries, with Pence in particular seeming more blankly AI generated than usual, to the point where I began referring to him in my notes as Chat GOP instead of Chatbot. Okay, so maybe Jeff Yang isn't the be-all and end-all comedy judge. Anyway, Hale Boyd said Tim Scott was inspiring, but a lot of the rest of the debate wasn't. Okay. Frida Gittes said there was no profiles and courage on that stage. Okay. Paul Begala said the biggest losers were the Fox moderators, and you've seen CNN and other media outlets try to pile on Fox, but I did hear some criticism about the moderators and how some of the technical aspects to the debate went. I would love to hear your take on that. Now here's a big red flag. I put a bunch of markers on this. S.E. Cupp. In full disclosure, I interviewed S.E. Cupp years ago on my radio program. She went to Ithaca, and that's when she was really conservative. I mean, she was looked at maybe as a new, fresh face, as a conservative pundit. Something about Trump changed her on that, and so now she's very moderate, to put it politely, leaning towards the left. She says Nikki Haley showed up ready to play. Nikki Haley came ready to play in a way that truly set her apart from the rest and made her the night's winner. So ask yourself, why is everybody pushing Nikki Haley? Sophia Nelson said DeSantis did not meet the moment. As with the last debate, the best person, remember, I'm bringing this up for a reason. As with the last debate, the best person the GOP has in this field who could actually win a general election is Haley. Now, Sophia Nelson, who said that, so you got S.E. Cupp, moderate to left. You've got Sophia Nelson, a former investigative counsel in the U.S. Congress, is the author of the book Black Women Redefined, Dispelling Myths and Discovering Fulfillment in the Age of Michelle Obama. She believes the only way Republicans can win is if they choose Nikki Haley. Others just saying that the Republicans debase themselves. You get the idea. I just want to give all sides to this, the left and the right, and what they thought last night. But again, as I always say, the most important comments are from you, so contact me. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. I'm going to take another short break. Coming up in a little bit, we are going to hear from Dr. Elizabeth Werner from Guthrie. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And thank you to everybody who reached out when we had a little bit of an audio issue, trying to get to the bottom of that. So I do appreciate when people comment on that, because it helps me know that I'm just talking and staring blankly into a camera and you're not hearing it. So we're talking about what the experts had to say. Again, a lot of people saying Nikki Haley, the New York Post panel, was also full of praise for former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who got into scrapes with DeSantis, Ramaswamy, and Tim Scott. I did not like the line, "I feel dumber every time you finish speaking." She said that to Ramaswamy. Seems as if she's trying to go with the Trump effect. Does not work for me, but I also think it's not clever. I'm not sure. But again, that's not to keep criticizing Nikki Haley. There's something to criticize from every candidate there last night. The second Republican debate devolved into lame Survivor-like game show loaded with reality TV wannabes. This is from Andrew McCarthy, and I do think he makes a good point. For several of the candidates, that might be just what they want. That's exactly what they wanted. Chris Christie certainly has a better shot at a television career than he does at the Republican nomination. And I like that line, because you got to remember, Chris Christie is all about Chris Christie. That's been his whole career, whatever's politically expedient. And that's why he, for lack of a better word, flip-flops on all of the issues, because he's trying to think of what media outlet he can get a job from. So anyway, I won't criticize Haley. I know it sounds like I am. I will say I will criticize Chris Christie. I'm not a fan of Chris Christie. Many people that do not like Trump or do not want to see him get the nomination, their line of reasoning is everybody drop out except for one, maybe two candidates that stand a chance, rally around them so they can actually take on Trump. Bottom line of second Republican debate, get it down to two non-Trump candidates fast. That's Carol Markowitz. There can only be one. One candidate can emerge to challenge Donald Trump for the Republican nomination. One, she says. What is your thoughts on that? Okay, so I got some good comments coming in. We're going to take a break. I'm going to read these comments. because when we come back, we're going to hear from Dr. Elizabeth Werner. Oh, one other thing, and I would love to hear your opinion on this. Many of us, big Ronald Reagan fans, kind of study his career, really led to so many amazing things in this country. Well, according to, and I can't remember where this original piece came from, but I got it off of Yahoo News, and it's David Lauder and Seema Mehta wrote this piece. Oh, Los Angeles Times. They said the Republican debate has an unplanned theme that, quote, this isn't Ronald Reagan's party anymore. Wednesday night's debate began with tributes to Reagan, but those sentiments don't change the reality of an evolving party. What's your thoughts on that? Obviously, studying the career of Ronald Reagan. I had, in the past, interviewed Phyllis Schlafly. So, I mean, I've seen what you would call the conservative movement. Do you believe it has evolved that much that you wouldn't consider the party today the party of Reagan? That's my question for you. And then when we come back, we'll hear from Dr. Elizabeth Werner from Guthrie. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Our guest from Guthrie Radiology, Dr. Elizabeth Werner. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about the Saturday mammogram promotion going on now at Guthrie.
So yeah, these Saturday mammograms are screening mammogram appointments on Saturday in October during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're hoping this increases access to those women that can't make a weekday appointment due to work or family obligations.
Have you found it's been easier for a lot of people? Because Saturday sometimes is the only day that people have free.
It's a very popular, it fills up quickly.
So for those that aren't aware, who should get a mammogram and how frequently should they get a mammogram?
So the current screening guidelines for average risk women is starting at the age of 40 and annually.
So annually, so annually, so that does definitely makes Saturday a lot easier for a lot of people. What should someone do? Because I know this changes some of the rules, so to speak. What should someone do if they have a history of breast cancer in their family?
So if someone has a history of breast cancer in their family, whether it's multiple family members or possibly a family member that got diagnosed at an earlier age, like in their 30s or 40s, you could be at high risk for developing breast cancer. So you really need to have a discussion with your provider to see what screening options are available. We also do evaluate every patient that comes in for an appointment for a mammogram to see if they are high risk, because we really want to capture those women because we do have other options available for them.
How long is the process, because we keep saying that Saturday is easier for people, how long is the process from beginning to end?
For the appointment?
Yeah.
Probably you have to register, come in, 15-minute appointment, and then done.
Oh.
So it's really not that much time.
And what would you say, and I'm sure this happens a lot, I'm sure you've had these conversations, what would you say to someone that is maybe putting this off because they're afraid?
It's a tough one because no one wants bad news.
Sure.
But our goal is to find breast cancers when they're small, when they're easily treated and curable. So I always thank women for coming in and having their mammograms done. I know it is anxiety provoking, but when we find something, we want to find it before it's spread. And it's just having to reassure that we take care of you every step of the way. That's what we do here.
That you're there for them. So before I ask you about how to sign up on Saturdays, we should probably then clarify that you don't have to just do this on Saturday.
No. We're open every day except for holidays and weekends, minus the Saturdays in October.
Gotcha. So are the mammograms every Saturday in October?
So the specific dates and times vary on the locations. So to check out a location near you or to make an appointment, you can go to the Guthrie website, www.guthrie.org/mammography, or call 866-GUTHRIE. You can also go onto our Eat Guthrie website and schedule appointments that way.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for being on the program this morning and also spreading the word about really this important program.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We're going to get away from the GOP debate. I think there's probably enough discussion on that. I will say, just to add on, because the media keeps pushing Nikki Haley, a piece that came out right before the debate, perfect timing, coming from Reuters. Some Republican donors now eye Haley as the best hope against Trump. Okay. So before I go into some other issues, I received a really good comment during the break. We were talking with Dan Hurley earlier about Bradley Farms, but also about his time on the Southport Town Council. And we were both kind of lamenting the fact that people don't go to public hearings. They don't go to the board meetings, especially the board meetings. And this is someone who said that this is just my 2 cents about town meetings. Prior to COVID, I tried to attend some town meetings. And for me, they're too political. So I think it's a turnoff for most who are tired of the chaos. That is a fair point. And that's not, I will say, that's not all town meetings. It probably depends on where you're at, obviously. But yeah, when it goes into chaos and back and forth, I could understand why that could turn many people off. And with all due respect to the good cops that we all should value, and I for one do, the presence of the cop that started attending our meetings could be intimidating to some. And I don't think it's necessary to monitor the, quote, level of anger, rather to understand why people are mad and frustrated. Real feelings that matter when you aren't being heard and taken seriously. And that's a good point. When you believe, especially as a citizen of that town, that you're not being taken seriously or that your concerns are falling on deaf ears, I can understand where that could make people mad and frustrated. So that, hey, I think that's a very good point across the board. I'm just trying to figure out, as you know, with this program, we're trying to get people back involved in their community. So any idea would help. People should attend their town board meetings or city council meetings, get involved in the political scene. Let's change up the topics for just a moment. We do have one more break we're going to have to take, but Biden is going to issue a warning this week. If you had to guess, what do you think the warning would be? Think campaign mode. Don't think presidential mode. Think campaign mode. Biden is to issue a warning over Trump's threats to democracy as they head towards a possible 2024 rematch. Now, I don't think, were we ahead of the curve? I guess, but it was the easiest guess in the world, which is the whole campaign is going to be the only thing that saves democracy is Joe Biden. We knew it. You knew it. Everybody knew that was going to be his tagline. So now I guess this is the kickoff to maybe his campaign. President Joe Biden will issue blunt new warnings about ongoing threats to U.S. democracy in a major address Thursday, sharpening the central argument in his political rematch with Donald Trump, who he's accused of trying to, quote, destroy bedrock American institutions. I do think it's interesting. Destroy, Trump destroyed the norms, the institutions. Isn't it Biden who's completely ignoring the Supreme Court decisions on, well, for instance, student loan forgiveness? I mean, it's easy to throw these words around, and it's something that he's playing to people's emotions, to their feelings. That is he really, the people that don't pay attention, is he really a threat to democracy? So I just thought that headline was kind of funny or amusing, because we know that we're going to hear that now starting in essentially October until late October, early November of next year. And let me just preface this by saying, even if Trump doesn't end up being the nominee, whoever it is, I don't care if it's Nikki Haley, who everybody in the media wants. I don't care if it's DeSantis. I don't care who it is up on that stage. Chris Christie, for heaven's sakes. If they're the nominee, they will be a threat to democracy, and they will be out to destroy the norms and institutions. If you don't believe me, if you say, well, the media is saying such nice things about Nikki Haley, they would never turn on her. They might not promote her as much as they would Biden, but they're not going to turn on her. I would point to John McCain, the Maverick, right? He was the Maverick, and the media loved him because he would go against the Republican Party. And the media loves that. That always is going to get your attention. So he'd go against, and he was called the Maverick, and he would go against the Republican Party. So when he was going for the nomination, he thought, once I get it, the media is going to love me. They're going to be easy on me because I always helped them. I was always very beneficial to them. I always was really kind and generous to them. What was it? Maybe a day or two after the nomination? Maybe I'll even argue a week. Let's say a week. A week after he got the nomination, they ran with unproven, salacious story about how John McCain had cheated on his wife. That was basically day one. So there is no loyalty to Republicans when it comes to the media, no matter what they're saying now. Couple of things we're going to wrap up as we go because I have to take one more break. But we have a lot more to get to, and it's going to be fast. So stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Just before we wrap up, I've saved this chestnut, this gem, for the very end of the program. Yes, the rules have changed again. The Senate passed a resolution just yesterday to make business attire a requirement on the Senate floor. Why this was ever an issue to begin with, we know it's because of Fetterman, but and to think of the, I don't know, the hypocrisy, maybe not the elitist idea that they could wear casual clothing, but not the staff, not the aides. They still had to dress up. Man, just a glaring example of some of the things wrong with Washington. But yeah, unanimous decision. The move comes after backlash when Chuck Schumer just changed the rules in midair. The bipartisan resolution requires that business attire be worn on the floor of the Senate, quote, which for men shall include a coat, tie, and slacks or other long pants. So it's really about the long pants, I suppose, is where the issue arose. And maybe, too, because Fetterman took such advantage of it. When you think about he presided over the Senate in shorts and a hoodie, it was like he was laughing in the face of not only Republicans, not only the American people, but also his own party. Though we've never had an official dress code, the events over the past week have made us all feel as though formalizing one is the right path forward, said Chuck Schumer. I deeply appreciate Senator Fetterman working with me to come to an agreement that we all find acceptable. And of course, I appreciate Senator Manchin and Senator Romney's leadership on this issue. Can I just say, I don't know anything about Fetterman. I've never met the man. But the fact that this is all because he wants to wear shorts, I mean, when does maturity come into this? When does being an adult come into this? There's times when you may not want to dress up, but there's never a time where you don't have to run for Senate. I mean, he didn't have to run for Senate. So, well, anyway, I guess Fetterman made some response. Oh, a great piece at New York Post, if you get a chance, asking the public to carry the OD reviving Narcan that we talk so much about. They're asking the public to carry it. Is the liberal government giving up? And that's by Bob McManus. Okay, we are out of time. Thank you to all of our guests. Dr. Elizabeth Werner, who we just heard from Guthrie just a few moments ago. And thank you to Dan Hurley from Bradley Farms. What a great way to spend fall. Get to Bradley Farms and have a great family outing. Thank you to everybody who joined us. We'll be back tomorrow morning with Frankly Speaking. Starting at 7, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will join us. So make sure you tune in. I will see you bright and early.